So guys, we see that we can use callable statement for executing stored procedures in Java. So stored procedure, it's like an SQL query that resides in the DBMS itself. It doesn't reside on the application that is communicating to the DBMS. So what are the pros or the advantages? Number one, it's that it avoids SQL injection. And also for security, when you're using a stored procedure, you're limiting access. The user is just calling the stored procedure. They don't know what the stored procedure is doing or is calling. Code reusability. You can reuse your code. If you need to get employees in different parts of your code, you don't need to rewrite that SQL. Then you can just call the stored procedure. Also, the stored procedure will reduce network traffic. If you were to just write a small code that calls a stored procedure, and you find that your stored procedure has a lot of code, like it's complex. Imagine if that code was residing in your application. It would mean when you make an SQL query, you are sending that as part of your statement, which actually goes over the network. So you are reducing network traffic. You are just sending parameters. Then also stored procedures are known for retaining or for execution plan. So when you give SQL to the database management system, it will optimize it to generate the best way to retrieve the data. So stored procedure do that the best way. The disadvantages of stored procedures is that it locks you into a vendor. You find that the code is not portable. If you want to move from one database to another, you are locked. Especially if the stored procedure is complex, the code is a bit complex. And also testing, you only see errors at runtime. You don't have that opportunity to see errors like during compile time. So having explained the stored procedure, I'm just going to show you guys the code that generates a stored procedure. So this is just a statement to create a stored procedure. So this stored procedure, what it does, it gets all employees. So you can just see it's like we have wrapped around this SQL. Then when we call it, it will execute this SQL and return something back to us. So we can also, we have another stored procedure to add employees to a database. See first name and salary, and we are just adding them here. Then we see we have another stored procedure that actually count employee with a salary greater than the given salary. So we see what we are doing. We are just doing prevention of exception. It will only be executed only if it doesn't exist. For all of them, it's the same. Yes, you see that this stored procedure only contains output parameters, and this one contains an input and output parameters. So you can have a situation whereby a stored procedure contains a parameter that is both input and both output, as we saw in our slide. But we are not going to demonstrate that for now. You can look at that at your own time. Now, let me check if I already have these stored procedures in our code. Okay, we already have these stored procedures. So I'm not gonna create them. What I'm going to do, I'm just gonna run code. So as you can see here, callable statement connection.prepare call query, and this query is actually getting all the employees in the DB. So if we run this code, we should expect to see what I can do here. I can use let my util dot print ResultSet. So it will just print everything for me. So I'm just gonna run this code. So as you can see, we have called a stored procedure, and it has returned back data to us, and this is here the data we are calling. You can also have a stored procedure to insert data into a database. So we see here we are calling add employee. Here in the other stored procedure, number 2, we just called get all employees, and we used the result set and we iterated over it. So in the third one here, we are adding an employee. We're giving it all the parameters that are required. So we have this one, and this one. And we don't have that data at the moment in the DB. So what we want to do, we run this dot procedure, and the data is saved for us. Then here is the data. It has been saved in the DB for us. So you can see here the statement. You can pass all types of data that you really want to pass to the stored procedure. And the data should be compatible. Then number 4, you see here we are demonstrating where you're passing stored procedure an input parameter, and then also expecting something to be passed to you. So what you are doing here, we are giving the first parameter here, which is this value that we are giving here, parameter index 1, parameter then we are giving it value 1. So what we are saying, we are telling the stored procedure to find all employees who have salary that is greater than 1. And then we are registering the second parameter as an output parameter, which means that the stored procedure will write some data to this parameter to us, which will then be able to read it back and display. If we come here to this stored procedure, we see that this in salary is a decimal, it's an input parameter, and this out we are writing into it. So we are saying select everything into out. So we are setting this value essentially. Then we say from employee where salary is greater than in salary. So even if we come here, we will see that the stored procedure is exactly like that. So if we run this query, the expectation is that salary that is greater than 1, we can see that all of them, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it should give us 4. So let's just run this code and see what will be printed. We see 4 is printed. So let's say we want to give it 49. It should give us 2 because, let's say we are giving it, I'm just gonna put 30 here for argument's for the sake. We want salary that is greater than 27. It should give us 2, because we have 2 of them. So I'm gonna put 27 here. Then we should get 3 in the 2 in there as the output, because we are doing the count. So you can have more complex stored procedures, but this is just for demonstration purposes.